Welcome back. Election day is nearly here, and voters in some districts will have school referendums on the ballot. Now, even if your child's district does not have one this election cycle, chances are there was one recently or there will be one in the coming years. So what is a referendum, and why should we as parents pay attention? Appleton from Chalkbeat is here to help us understand all of this. So let us start with the basic question. Let's explain to people, what are referendums?
Referendums are essentially a way to fund your local schools by paying additional property taxes. Sometimes these referendums fund something like a building or extra safety measures in the building, but oftentimes they're operational referendums, which fund things like teacher salaries, school buses, and really anything you can think of that goes on inside a school.
So I think most people hear that and they're like, okay, cool, more money towards the schools, we need that. But what would be the argument against referendums? Why do people not like them or not vote for them?
Right, nobody likes to pay more property taxes, right? And referendums are an additional property tax on top of what you're already paying to the school.
Yeah, so what happens if they don't pass then?
For a lot of schools, it means cuts to staff or things like bus transportation. Some school districts this year are saying if they don't pass this, they don't get to have bus transportation.
Yeah, that's what's always the scary thing about referendums. Again, nobody wants taxes to go up, but something has to be cut some kind of way. And so sometimes they're even cutting staff members or they're cutting school programs. I guess the districts are just trying to make up for it any way that they can.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. And then we know that there's some differences this year. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we have some new laws on the books that affect referendums. The first one is that school districts can generally only hold referendums during general elections. There was a special carve out for this year. But what that's going to mean is that if they fail this year, they're going to have fewer chances moving forward to try again.
Okay. So I want to really not gloss over that. So that means that it can't just pop up on the ballot the very next year, or to your point, maybe there's a cap for the number of times that it can pop up on the ballot?
There is. This year is a local election, is local elections in Indiana, and there's a very special carve out for this year. But going forward in local elections, school districts won't be able to have referendums. They'll have to wait for something like a statewide election, presidential election, something with federal or state offices on the ballot. And no primary elections, no May elections for referendums either.
Oh, wow. Okay. It just seems like that would be very difficult as an educator or someone that's trying to get, more money for the school. Okay, so what about the new property tax reform bill? Obviously, there was just a ton of back and forth, and a lot of legislators trying to make sure that it is lowered and that people aren't paying more than their fair share. And so there was a lot of controversy surrounding this.
Most districts are expecting to raise less operating revenue through those property taxes because of these caps. Another aspect of the law is that districts are going to have to share eventually some of that operating revenue and operating revenue with charter schools.
Yes, this is a shot in the dark. I know that you just covered the education beat generally, but have there been discussion about any other funding sources? I know some states look to things like the lottery, or some states even look to things like making marijuana legal to be able to afford some of these costs that come up.
Yeah, I used to cover education in Nevada, which went with the marijuana funding for education, and we could spend a whole segment on how that went. Of course, schools get state funding, and what lawmakers say is that they're increasing state funding every year. But what schools say is when you take away our property taxes, when you shrink that pool, it ends up being a net loss in a lot of places.
Okay, and it still provides a very difficult funding formula. Alex, thank you. We know that these issues get to be really complex, but we do like talking about it here on Parent Squad because we want you to be informed as parents, and we want you to have enough information to be able to make the decisions that you need to make in the voting booth.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. If you would like more info, we have a link to Chalkbeat with this segment at WTHR.com/Parent Squad. There you can get more information. We will be right back.